It all started on a Thursday evening, the kind of evening where the world seemed to exhale a collective sigh of relief. The weekend loomed close, and I was strolling back from my favorite cafe, nursing the dregs of a lukewarm latte. The street lights flickered above me, buzzing faintly like trapped insects, and the autumn air nipped at my face. I remember thinking how peaceful it all felt, how rare it was to enjoy such an untroubled moment in this city. That's when I saw him. At first, I didn't think much of it. He stood across the street, partially obscured by shadows, his figure unnervingly still. He was dressed like a clown, not a modern cheery party clown, but something from an old-time circus poster. His makeup was exaggerated, with dark eyes that seemed to stretch unnaturally wide, and a painted grin that curled grotesquely past his cheeks. He wore a faded yellow jumpsuit with red polka dots, the fabric fraying at the edges, and an oversized ruffled collar that looked like it belonged in a museum exhibit. I laughed nervously to myself, chalking it up to some eccentric street performer or an early Halloween enthusiast. But then he waved. It wasn't a friendly wave. It was slow, deliberate, and oddly mechanical, like he was mocking the act of greeting itself. A shiver ran down my spine, but I told myself to keep walking. He'd lose interest, I thought. People like that feed on attention. I picked up my pace, the sound of my boots echoing against the pavement. The cafe was in a quiet part of town, and I suddenly regretted choosing such a desolate route. Glancing back over my shoulder, I saw the clown again. He was on my side of the street now, still as a statue, yet somehow closer than before. My heart began to race. I didn't see him cross the street. I sped up, nearly breaking into a jog, and fumbled for my phone to call someone, anyone, but my fingers felt clumsy and useless. When I looked back again, he was gone. Relief washed over me like a wave. I chastised myself for letting my imagination get the better of me. But then I heard the soft, almost imperceptible squeak of a rubber sole dragging across the pavement. The sound was faint but steady, keeping pace with me, just out of sight. I turned a corner sharply, hoping to lose him, and ducked into a convenience store. The fluorescent lights inside buzzed harshly, but they felt like a safe haven compared to the darkness outside. The clerk barely glanced at me as I pretended to browse the aisles, my ears straining for any sound of pursuit. Minutes passed, maybe longer. I didn't hear the squeak again, nor did I see the clown through the glass doors. When I finally mustered the courage to leave, I convinced myself it was over. Just a weird encounter, nothing more. But the next night, he was there again. This time he was standing at the edge of my apartment complex's parking lot, illuminated by the dim orange glow of a street lamp. He wasn't waving anymore, he was just staring. I couldn't see his eyes beneath the heavy makeup, but I could feel them boring into me. A primal instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. I don't know how long we stood there, locked in that silent standoff. Finally, I forced myself to move, walking briskly toward the building without looking back. My hands shook as I fumbled with my keys, every second feeling like an eternity. When I slammed the door behind me, I locked it, deadbolted it, and shoved a chair under the knob for good measure. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the building, every groan of the wind made my heart leap into my throat. I kept picturing his face, that painted grin and those dark, empty eyes, hovering just outside my window. The days that followed were worse. He started showing up everywhere. I'd see him across the street when I left for work, lingering in the shadows like some grotesque specter. Once, I caught a glimpse of him in the reflection of a shop window, standing far too close for comfort. I spun around, ready to confront him, but he was gone. I told my friends about him, hoping they'd offer some rational explanation, but they just laughed it off. "It's probably just some weirdo trying to mess with you," one of them said. "Just ignore him." Ignore him. As if that were possible. The clown became bolder. One night I woke up to the sound of tapping on my bedroom window. I lived on the second floor. My blood turned to ice as I sat up, my eyes darting to the window. There he was, perched precariously on the narrow ledge, his grin impossibly wide. He raised a gloved hand and wiggled his fingers in a mocking wave. I screamed, scrambling for my phone to call the police. By the time they arrived, he was gone, leaving behind only a single red balloon tied to the window latch. The officers were sympathetic but clearly skeptical. "Are you sure you didn't imagine it?" one of them asked, his tone dripping with condescension. I didn't imagine it. I couldn't have. The final straw came a week later. I came home to find my apartment door ajar, the lock splintered as if forced open. My stomach dropped as I pushed the door open cautiously, half expecting him to leap out from the shadows. The apartment was empty, but the air felt wrong, heavy and suffocating. On my kitchen table sat a single photo. It was of me, taken from outside my bedroom window. I was asleep in the picture, my face peaceful and unguarded. Scrawled across the bottom in jagged, childlike handwriting were the words, "Sweet dreams." I moved out the next day. It's been months now, and I've relocated to a new city, far from everything and everyone I know. I've changed my number, deleted my social media, and refused to tell anyone my address. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the faint, unmistakable squeak of rubber soles just outside my window. And I know he's still out there, watching, waiting, his painted grin seared into my nightmares forever. Last night, I came home late from work. My new apartment building is modern, with secure entrances and a 24-hour concierge. I'd started to convince myself that I was safe here, that I could finally stop looking over my shoulder. But as I stepped off the elevator, I froze. There was a red balloon tied to my door handle. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my pulse roaring in my ears. My hand trembled as I reached out and untied the string, clutching the balloon in disbelief. Attached to it was a small, folded piece of paper. With shaking fingers, I opened it. The message was simple: "Miss me." Panic surged through me. I rushed inside, locking the door behind me and checking every room. The apartment was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night, I barely slept, my ears straining for any sound. This morning, I found another photo on my kitchen counter. This one was of me again, taken through the peephole of my apartment door. I was holding the balloon, my face pale with terror. The caption read, "I'll always find you." I've contacted the police, but they've been no help. "Could it be someone you know playing a prank?" they asked. I wanted to scream. How could anyone I know do something this twisted? I've started packing again. I don't know where I'll go, but staying here is not an option. The clown has made it clear, he's not just a figment of my imagination. He's real, and he's relentless. As I write this, I keep glancing at the window. The blinds are drawn, but I swear I can feel his presence on the other side. My fingers hover over the keyboard, my chest tight with fear. And then, the tapping starts again.